everybody, welcome to the second episode of Beyond the Lights. In this episode we're going to be focusing on the cast and characters, where we'll have developers reacting to your videos, providing deeper insights, as well as having special appearances that you don't want to miss out on. Let's get straight into it.
My name is Martin Emborg. I'm the Bond IP Creative Director and Narrative and Cinematic Director, and I've been at I.O. since 2006 on and off. Play.
Let's give him one.
He's so young!
They've got the cheek scar. They have got the cheek scar.
It's when he's a youngin! Holy shit! It's when he's a youngin!
Have an appointment.
He looks dark, he looks mysterious, while also being cocky and confident and quite flirty as well.
Man, I love that they're getting that from this, because yeah, obviously, he's all of those things and more.
The people who have put this together have done their homework, quite frankly. They're not just looking at cinematic.
Which was a delight, obviously, and the gravity of the job settles in as well when you do that. But it's very inspiring. Those books are amazing. Like, they're really well paced. They're really quite brutal, and they're really quite realistic. You can quite clearly see how the decades have had their versions, and so now it's our turn. Doing an origin story for something like Bond, it's a really interesting challenge, taking the core qualities of the character that people know and love, obviously, for 60 plus years. But then, how did he get there? How did he become this guy that's suave and knows everything? What's the journey to go there? And hopefully, the journey and where he comes from, to some extent, should surprise or, at least intrigue people, so that he isn't just kind of like stepping through the door and going, well, let's get started. Like, there's a journey, there's a character arc that he needs to go through.
And you are? Don't think we've had the pleasure.
Now let's not get ahead of ourselves, James.
What is very different in terms of difference from books and movies is that in our version, Moneypenny is a field analyst, and so she's going to be in his earpiece. And so you get a lot more time with Moneypenny. You get a lot more conversation between her and Bond. So traditionally, Bond is a man of very few words. In our version, he speaks a lot more, which is partly because he's a young guy, but also partly to do with the medium. And we're not cutting to the next, set piece. You're with him. You're entering the building with him. And so you're going to be part of a lot of back and forth, a lot of conversation, and a lot of perspectives. Sometimes quite fun. It's always more fun to jump out of a window if you're being told not to. So that's definitely part of their dynamic as well.
So Bond and Moneypenny do have a long history, I guess, across the franchise. And ultimately, I think we wanted to honor that DNA in this version of her. So they do their dynamic treads this line of all cheekiness, but admiration. There's a lot of respect, but there's still pushback when needed. And yeah, we wanted to honor that. But I guess in First Light, we do see them at an earlier stage, just before that kind of mythology sets in around them. And, they're figuring each other out. So there is still that chemistry there. And hopefully that chemistry grows throughout the game and everyone can kind of feel that and sense that. But at the same time, they're figuring each other out. And we wanted to show that too, while still honoring everything that we've seen about them in the past.
When we meet him, he is a young man that steps into the world of espionage, steps into MI6, where he'll meet the surrounding cast. And the way that we work with the surrounding cast is that we've imbued these surrounding characters like M and Greenway and Moneypenny with some of those qualities that you know from Bond, and so that they can inform the character. And fans will notice, oh yeah, so that might be how he picked up his style in the case of Q, for instance. Q in our version is a very sartorial, very stylish gentleman. So he's the reason that the Q watch is an Omega, and he's the reason that the Q car, the spy car, is an Aston Martin. So that's a very tangible version of how these characters inform who he is.
Hi, my name's Alastair Mackenzie, and I play Q in 007 First Light. My first reaction when they asked me to play Q was nothing but excitement. I'd just been such a massive fan of Bond for all my life. I grew up with Desmond Llewellyn playing Q, and then Ben Whishaw. So to be invited in to be part of that universe is just, it's very flattering and very exciting. Also for me, Q was always he was the cool uncle figure when I was growing up. I loved Desmond Llewellyn. He was, an old man, but he had this kind of uncle-like quality to him that was very, very appealing. First Light is, as I say, it's more of an origin story. So we have to, we see him as a slightly younger man, and we see him as somebody who's experienced in the field. He has to kind of teach Bond how to become an agent, effectively. So he's more of a kind of teacher-mentor figure. There's a lot of tech involved. You know, he's kind of likes to mess around a bit, and Q has to keep him in check and remind him that he has a job to do and he has to do it properly, and he can't mess around with these gadgets because they're dangerous, and he's got to treat them with the respect and the care that they deserve. Our Q has to be someone who commands that kind of respect, has that sort of authority. He is the sort of professor and the teacher and the mentor, but is also a little bit of a twinkle in his eye as well, and he's a friend of Bond as well. Q would not be where he is today if he was not experienced in the field himself. So I imagine, you know, he's got a few tasty moves under his belt that he can bring out if necessary. But this one is only for 00 agents, James. If you want to drive it, you'll have to earn the number.
Then you have someone like Greenway, who's a new character. He's the mentor character, and he does not want Bond anywhere near this program. He's handpicked all the other recruits. They all excel at what they do. And so he basically sees Bond as someone who got lucky and should just, you know, keep walking. But M and Bond they have a lot of similarities. So in this version of the character of M, she's a lot younger. She's treated as the temp. I think everyone assumed that she would move on and be unable to kind of wield MI6. But she has this easy authority that fits the character of M, but she's ambitious, and she's the one that I think really sees something that MI6 is missing.
I'm Beatrice Harty. I'm lead for the character department, and I've been with IOI for 3.5 years. So the process of creating the initial look of a character usually starts with us getting a bio from the narrative team. So we have a sense of, you know, the basic stuff. What's the age? What's the gender? Where do they come from? Do they have some kind of cultural connection? What's their personality like? What's their ambitions? All of that. Because we don't just create one look usually for our characters. We actually do a full wardrobe for them, if you will. Usually we take a lot of reference images off the internet, make it quick and easy, gather a little bit what we think might be interesting, what might look good, what might feel good, what might feel right for this character. And then we start sketching, we start making a few concepts, and same there. We start making something loose, and then we go sharper and sharper and sharper into something that we then can go like, okay, this looks really good, this feels really good. It's quite important for us to make sure that we're creating characters that also complement each other or contrast each other, depending on what their role in the story is. So we once again want to really kind of look at also the relationships in between the characters, what they're doing together in the different levels, and making sure that that also feels believable and real. So in designing a villain, presence is of course one of the most important things that we want to portray, that we have a strong presence and a strong impression of this character right away. And one of the things that were fun to explore with Bavma was having some really bold, striking colors for him. Because this guy doesn't have to blend in at all. He can stand out, and he's not afraid to stand out, even in this highly, highly dangerous place. Like, he can afford to be almost a little bit flashy and really own the space that he's in, and showing that he's owning the space. So we created this yellow suit situation for him that kind of oddly makes me think a little bit of poison frogs. The way that they are beautiful and alluring to look at, but the color is also clearly there to signal a danger.
When you're in that creative space at the very beginning and you're lying on a couch and like having big thoughts, you know, some of those things arrive fully formed. What is the story we want to tell about a young Bond, and where do we want to meet him, and where do we want to leave him, and, you know, all that good stuff. And it's there's some alchemy going on, for sure.
So when we bring someone in for full likeness into our game, what we usually start with is getting them to a scanning studio. And we put them inside this lovely dome with a lot of cameras, and we make a scan of their face, their body, also their hands, whatever data that we think that we might need to get them into our virtual little world. Then we take that home with us and we start to reconstruct their faces, make something that is ready to put into the game, has the resolution and our shaders, our textures, all of that to get the look that we have in our game. All of these different expressions that we have scanned, we use that for our animators, animating their faces to be able to make sure that we're hitting these poses that we see that they can do. I'm thinking of Lenny James playing Greenway. He has a super expressive, lovely face. That has been super fun to work with. But that has also been a little bit of a challenge on what to keep into the base model and what to add in through animations and making that work and look correct. I mean, we spend so much time studying these people's faces and how they move around and how their wrinkles sort of react in different situations to the point where these poor actors would probably get a little self-conscious if they knew about. But we do spend a lot of time looking at them talking and moving about to get the correct feeling into our characters on them in our game, yeah.
You work for years and you're in the VA booth all the time and you do loads of mocap and you're staring at these kind of like grey shapes on the screen and trying to make what you're saying and doing match that. And then all of a sudden they come to you with these clips and you're like, wow, we've made something. And we've made something that is really cool. And yeah, I think that kind of moment hit even harder for me because it is my first game and I've never seen that come to fruition before. Yeah, I felt this insane amount of pride to be this tiny cog in the huge kind of beast that is the making of a video game. And yeah, I just can't wait to see it all now.
It was just such a joy to collaborate with Naomi. Like, I think everybody who was working on this wanted to make it as good as it could be. And it was like surprisingly kind of grueling days and like and long days, but I think everybody knew the kind of weight of responsibility you have when you're doing something like that is so beloved by fans already. And I came into that and just like crushed it every day. It was so fun to work with and like
Cortados.
Yeah, a lot of cortados. Yeah, and then just killing it every day.
Once you find the actor or actress that will portray and breathe life into this character, there's a recalibration. Like the instincts of great actors, I mean, it's priceless. And obviously it has a major impact on the character. And I think the luxury of something like this, where we've worked with someone like Patty for a long time, you do get to calibrate the character to fit what he does and his instincts and how he carries himself. Obviously, when you have a text and you have a character, that's when the work begins to some extent, right? It's like you could play something in a myriad different ways. I was extremely impressed with how much he brought to the table, and that's true for the whole cast. How much they bring when they come in and the questions that they ask. I mean, you better be on your A game. Like we're operating at a quite high level on this project. And yeah, I think we've made something quite special.
That was it for the second episode of Beyond the Lights. We really hope you enjoyed. If you haven't already, you can pre-order the game now and get a free deluxe upgrade. And if you have any questions, please leave a comment down below. And we'll see you guys next time.